Just minutes after we wrapped last week's show, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau, meaning Thibs' reward for leading New York to its best season in a quarter century was his walking papers, and the $30 million still owed to him. Like many coaches, Thibodeau was ultimately undone by the expectations he helped create. The Knicks won 4 playoff series in his 5-year run after winning just 1 series in the 20 years before he arrived. Unless New York can pull a Kevin Durant-sized rabbit out of its hat, a coaching change might prove to be the Knicks' only move after all the assets spent constructing this formidable but flawed roster. Thibs couldn't change the fact the team's 2 best players are porous defenders, nor can any head coach recoup the draft pick spent on Mikal Bridges. But in our rush to clown the Knicks, we can't pretend Thibodeau was blameless either. As a playoff run reportedly marked by multiple players-only meetings unfolded, it became clear New York needed a more creative offensive approach in addition to requiring more depth. And for all Thibs' defensive strengths, no one will confuse him with the type of coach who will address those 2 core issues. He probably wouldn't have trusted whatever depth pieces the Knicks add this summer anyway. And on the offensive end, a team stocked with shooters ranked 28th in three-point attempt rate. His in-game adjustments and general adaptability left something to be desired too. Finding a coach who can live up to the standard Thibodeau left behind won't be easy, and his firing does feel cold, but that doesn't mean it was wrong. And with that, welcome to the Unfiltered Show from theScore Studios. My name is Joseph Casciaro. Joining us today, returning guest, multi-time returning guest, Scott Campsall, Michael Chandler. Chandler's going to try not to botch any names today. What's going on, boys?
What's up, man? Thanks for having us back on.
Yeah, no worries.
I think even just in pre-talking, with Chandler before the show, he did already botch a name, so I'm really excited to see it firsthand.
Can't wait.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. Thank you for immediately establishing my faults. Yeah. Sorry.
Well,
we can only go up from here, though.
Listen,
so.
I mean, I was going to say you and Tom Thibodeau, none of us are perfect. We all have faults. The difference is we're not getting $30 million to not work. Tom Thibodeau is. But let's talk about it. Like I said, I missed the chance to talk about it last week because he was fired like less than an hour after we went off the air. Thoughts on it? Do you think he was done wrong? Did the Knicks do him wrong? Was this cold? Are you in agreement with me that cold doesn't necessarily mean wrong?
Number one, just absolute transition master there. I love that. This is a professional at work here. I think that's exactly the point. I think you're at a point with the Knicks where it seems cold. I think it's tough to argue it's not cold, but I also kind of feel like, they took the time to talk to the players. There was a whole, evaluation situation. And with a lot of these teams, like we've seen it before, like, maybe when the Warriors fired Mark Jackson, if you think your team is better than the ceiling you've reached and you feel like you can reach that with another coach, then I think you owe it to yourselves to make the move. As you addressed up top, rotations are always going to be a thing with him. I think we saw it firsthand in the conference finals too, when, during the regular season, your job is to play out a bunch of different lineups. You see that with OKC, who, started Case and Wallace in game 1, and that's a guy who started 35 games this year because he gave the team a chance to see what they look like with different lineups. Thibs just plays his guys. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. There were some issues in terms of foul trouble. He had to go to guys like DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet, who typically don't get a lot of run. And there just wasn't a lot there. The team wasn't comfortable playing with those guys. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to if you're the Knicks.
Are you alleging that Tyler Kolek, Pacome Daddio, and Ariel Huckporty could have been their saviors if Thibs had integrated them in the rotation earlier in the year?
So you're saying this is more of a front office issue, like team issue, not a Thibs, and he ended up just falling on the sword because that's all they could do.
Well, to a degree, yeah. Leon Rose is culpable for the construction of this team, and I think it is a little harsh on Thibs, but I like Thibs. I think he's a dream for every NBA camera operator when something happens against the Knicks, and then they shoot over the sideline, and he's got that befuddled sort of Penguin from Batman look on his face and his hands on his shoulders. It's kind of funny, and I sort of empathize with that. But just because you're 2 wins from the NBA Finals does not mean you are a title caliber team, and I think the Knicks are a really good example of this. And they will need another coach to maybe get him over that proverbial hump. And I think this decision is made easier by the fact that there are a lot of quality and proven coaches on the market. There's Mike Malone out there who, I mean, if the Knicks are looking for a guy to play the bench, he might not be that guy.
I
Right.
was gonna say,
Or if they're looking for a guy who's like softer or any, like that's not him. Michael Malone is tough on his players. Like,
but there's also a Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah.
There's a Mike Brown. There's a Mike Budenholzer who, I mean, his tenure in Phoenix was pathetic. But if you talk about a person who can sort of put an emphasis on some different offensive schemes, could probably be better at covering for the fact that Jalen Brunson and, as you mentioned, Cat are negative or minus defenders. And maybe you also want to get more out of Michael Bridges, who, as you mentioned, you gave up 4 first-round picks for.
Michael Bridges, let's go. Check.
Well, okay, look. My name's Michael, also spelt the exact same way. My apologies. Mikal Bridges, who played a more involved offensive role with the Nets, with the Suns. Maybe they would like to integrate them a bit more. And like you said, they were a really poor NBA or three-point shooting team, even though they're sort of middle of the pack with percentage.
Yeah, they just didn't shoot it enough.
And that's also something that Coach Bud emphasizes. So, I mean, I am linking Coach Bud with the Knicks job right now. You heard it here first.
The Mikal Bridges point, another thing with that, too, is like...
Michael.
Nice. But the Bridges point is that...
I got Paco Medadio right, though.
Honestly, that was very impressive. Right. That was very
Cut
impressive.
the Michael stuff, Adrian.
Yeah. But, yeah, one of the things with Bridges, too, you mentioned, like, the offensive contributions or maybe, like, not involving him enough in the offense. When it comes to, like, the minute stuff and not trusting the depth, I think one of the more revealing points of this season was when Mikal Bridges, of all guys, like the NBA's ultimate Iron Man, a guy who does not miss time, is happy playing a lot of minutes. Even that guy had to publicly come out at one point and be like, you know, he doesn't have to play us this many minutes. Like, to me, that was a very revealing part of the season. It's like, if he's saying that publicly, we can only imagine what he's saying privately to other players, to teammates, perhaps to Leon Rose, to James Dolan. Like, it feels cold. You can't say Thibs did a bad job, but sometimes you could do a good job over, you know, in the big picture in getting a team over one hump and getting them to a certain point on the mountain, but you just might not be the guy capable of getting them all the way up the mountain. And I just think that's what this is.
May I ask you a brief question here?
You can always ask me.
What do you think is the influence of Rick Brunson in this equation? Because he is the father of the player, of the team's best player. And they fired Thibs, but they kept Rick on the staff. How do you think he plays into this entire thing?
I mean, I think, one, I'm not convinced he'll be on the staff when the new guy comes in. And two, I think in normal circumstances, I'd be like, yeah, something might be up there. The only reason I don't think he had anything to do with, or like, there's zero influence there, is because Brunson is a Thibs guy. Rick Brunson is a Thibs guy. Like, he is his assistant. And Jalen Brunson grew up with Thibs around because Rick Brunson played for the Knicks and Thibs was an assistant under Van Gundy's staff way back, with the Knicks. So they're all kind of part of this, like, Knicks family. And the Brunsons and Thibodeau are very close. So if anything, I would actually wonder if, like, you know, whether Rick Brunson as an assistant coach, but also Jalen Brunson as a player, might have been two of the only people actually on Team Thibodeau in this regard.
I'm kind of surprised you've come to Brunson's aid there after his early season on-court melee with Dante DiVincenzo, who I know you're a big fan of. And
the Big Ragu.
The Big Ragu. Anyways.
You also nailed that name. Proud of you.
Thank you.
That was good.
All right, I think we can leave the Thibs talk there, talk about the only two teams actually still playing basketball right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Scott, you were at the first 2 games of the finals in OKC in that great environment. We're going to get to a little bit more about the presentation of the games, the atmosphere around them later in the show. Let's start with some basketball, though. And what I'm curious to know is whether the first 2 games or anything about them has changed either of your expectations for the series. Because when you actually look at it, like, okay, you know, on one hand, you could say, hey, the Thunder won 18 more games. They were like 10.5-point favorites in each of the first 2 games. So you could look at it and be like, Indiana got a split in OKC. Wow, this is stunning. This is going to be a series. If you dig a little deeper into the numbers, and I know we have them for a board as well, you'll see that the Thunder have led for more than 91 minutes through 2 games. And the Pacers have led for less than 2 minutes. Oklahoma City's biggest lead was 23. Indiana's biggest lead was 3. And that was early in game 2 because, as we know, game 1, the game they won, they had a lead for 0.3 seconds. Like, the Thunder's leading SGA, who leads all scorers in this series, has 72 points. Pascal Siakam leads the Pacers with 34. The Thunder defense is turning the Pacers over the way we thought they would. They've got Halliburton in hell or jail or some combination of both. Like, if you actually dig into the series, watch film, look at the numbers, everything is actually playing out the way most of us expected in terms of OKC dominating. Indiana just happened to steal a game. And, okay, obviously the scoreboard's all that matters. But so, taking all that into account, anything changed for you in terms of what you expect?
So a couple of things there. I think, number one, the Pacers are a team that we've watched this whole playoff run.
Yeah.
Like, they are far better than their record indicates. I think game ones historically are super weird. Mark Dagnall talked about this after the first game, just how strange it is. They don't play the Pacers, obviously two separate conferences. How strange it is to go up against them. They play such a chaotic style that you really have to adjust to it. And I thought going in, if the Pacers were going to win a game one was going to be the one to take.
Sixers, Lakers,
it's
2001, right? AI
Absolutely.
stepping over, oh my God, they might slay the Giants. Actually, the series is over in 5.
Exactly, and I think you watched OKC. They made a couple of strange decisions in game one. They went small. I think they rectified that in game two. They went big on numerous occasions, especially when Indiana went small. They played Obi Toppin at the 5 at one point, and immediately they brought Hartenstein in to play with the Holmgren, and they went at them. I think this series, to your point, has kind of played out exactly the way I thought. OKC's a young team. It's not surprising that they would have a bit of a stickiness offensively in game one and not quite, Shea was great, but he wasn't, on game two, he was, I think, feeling the game a little bit more, passing the ball a little bit more, not forcing things. So I honestly wasn't too surprised. I mean, obviously the Pacers coming, being down 15 with 9 minutes left and coming back is a bit of a surprise, but also that's what this team does. If Miles Turner's banking in threes from the corner and Andrew Nembhard is, crossing guys up and hitting threes, you got a good chance at winning a game there.
Yeah, you're right. They've overcome margins of 15 or more points 5 times in this playoffs. Yeah. I was a little surprised mainly by game one, and I think it's because Mark Daigneault was really overcoached by Rick Carlisle, and that's not to say Carlisle was infallible. I don't love the full court press. I think OKC has just too many talented ball handlers to beat that press. I don't love the Pascal Siakam plus 4 bench players. I wish he would integrate maybe a Nembhard or a Neesmith into that. But I thought Daigneault was guilty of overthinking things. And maybe it's because he has the most NHL coaching name ever, and Marc Daigneault, that he thought he was making a line change that made sense. And I get why you put Case and Wallace into the starting lineup. They were scared of a too big lineup and how Pascal Siakam could exploit that. They were scared of how good Indiana is in transition, but it just didn't make a lot of sense to me, especially since Holmgren and Hartenstein play very well together. Hartenstein is a very good passer and a very fluid mover in an offense. And there was even a juncture in game one. I think it was the end of the third quarter. They had Obi Toppin and Thomas Bryant on the court, and they didn't even play the two big men. There's no scenario where Chet Holmgren should be playing 23 and 27 minutes in the opening 2 games of an NBA Finals series.
Yeah, and the Siakam point's interesting because, they were worried about Siakam maybe being too quick for the too big lineup. It ended up burning them anyway because he ended up being too big for OKC's small lineup, and Indiana was just going to him every time he had a mismatch, which was a lot in the opening stages of game one.
Right, and Case and Wallace isn't a very good screener, and this is a team in OKC that takes advantage of sort of profiting from those screens and that high ball action for Shea. So I thought it didn't make a ton of sense. And then he went back to the well in game 2 and started Wallace again. Now, of course, they played more of the big man lineup. Holmgren played a few more minutes, but it still seemed like a little bit too much stubbornness from Daigneault.
Okay. What did you have coming into the series?
I had OKC in 5.
So any different expectation right now?
I think it might go 6. I think Indiana could win game 3 or 4 at home, even though they've lost all game 3s in this series, whereas in this playoff whereas they've won every game 1. I'm just a little bit surprised by what happened in game 1. And I think Daigneault is largely to blame. All these small little variables add up, especially in a 1-point defeat. It could very easily be a 2-0 advantage heading to Indy right now.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, on the flip side, you could also say, literally, if if Shea makes that shot at the end of the game, then it doesn't matter at all. And I did think that they rectified a lot of that stuff in game 2 with the big to bigs. Like I think they used them where I needed to use them.
They also used a lot of different guys to bring the ball up the court, which helped free Shea a bit from that ball pressure.
Yeah, which I think made a huge difference. As you could see in game 1, it seemed like Shea was pressing a bit, and I think not necessarily looking for his own shot too much, but I think just feeling a little bit of that pressure. And I also, again, like game 1s are so weird, and you've got a game, and this is between two teams who by and large have almost no experience in the finals. So I think like a lot of those young guys are just going to feel it. Like J-Dub didn't play particularly well in game 1. I mean, he wasn't amazing in game 2, but he was much better. But OKC's just so deep, and I think over a time, like they're just going to wear you out. Like in game 1, they were so physical with them. And I think that's what led to all those turnovers. Also, honestly, in game 1, 19 turnovers in the first half. And I think they had like, in the end, I think 9 points off of turnovers, which is insane.
Sorry to cut you off. It was 25
for the game.
Total turnovers, 14 live ball turnovers, which was 14 steals for OKC to Indiana's 1. And they had 7 points off those turnovers.
Yeah. So it's just like that, like, and even that's like such an anomaly.
Right.
Like I think they had like 15 more shots than them or 20 more shots than them. Like the one just like,
which is what the Thunder do. They win the possession battle. Like the turnover margin I think was the biggest in NBA history. Like that's what they do.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
But they usually win when they do.
But
it.
that's the thing. It's like so many things went weird in game 1 that like I don't think that's enough evidence for me to even think like.
Right.
Oh, the Pacers are gonna like. I think it still ends in 5, honestly.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Just we spoke about it before the show. Scott was at the Paycom Center for Game 1, and he said it was one of the loudest atmospheres, and that can go one of two ways. It can benefit the home team, but it can also harm them. And we even saw in the pregame introduction, it's like Shea looked nervous. J-Dub was really jittery, had some weird sort of possessions, some weird shot attempts. So they've weathered that storm. So now I think it'll sort of regress to the mean, and they'll see this series out.
And to that point too, like OKC is a team who starts with Shea and it goes all the way down. And I don't think there's a more calm and cooler guy out there than Shea.
No, yeah.
Like he is a guy, like I asked J-Dub, before game 1, like, what's the biggest thing you take away from playing with a guy like that? And he straight up was like, Shea is so even keel. He never gets too high. He's just like focused on winning. Like that is a winner. And I think that you can just see, dude is 26. Like, I don't know what the average age of this team is, but all of their stars are under
24.8. It's youngest team to make the finals since the 77 Blazers.
Exactly.
Like
yeah, and it's just like for them to have this much poise, it's like I just trust them to,
Shea's the definition of unflappable.
100%.
I think like I actually had Thunder in 6 before the series, only because the Pacers have this like just weird moxie about them this year. We saw it in game 1, and then I figured, okay, if they can steal one or exceed, they'll get one in Indiana. I still think that's what this will be. I think it'll be Thunder in 6, but I think going 6 is going to make it seem on paper closer than it actually was, So it's like, oh, they took 2 games off them, but the Thunder are going to finish the series with like an average point differential of like plus 12 or something like that.
Yeah. And like the Pacers too, even in game 2, the final score was obviously, a blowout, but it really did feel like Thunder would go up 9 and then the Pacers would kind of chip away at it. Like, especially after what you experienced in game 1, you were never really like you could tell in game 1, the fans were kind of like, they were a little bit, attentive. And I think they kind of, didn't push through the same way they normally do. In game 2, the fans were loud the whole game. But I think the Pacers just have that thing of like, oh, it was an 11-point lead. All of a sudden it's 6, and then everyone just kind of tightens up.
Yes.
So I think the degree to which OKC is successful the rest of the way will be, contend with the fact that how much they can power through that and just be like unflapped by, dropping a 6-point lead or whatever.
Yeah, they won't be as rattled by
Exactly. Yeah. That's the English I was trying to put together there.
All right.
I'm very tired, guys.
I
just flew in. I'm so sorry.
Right from the Paycom Center. All right. Result changed from game 1 to 2. Another thing that changed from game 1 to 2 was the presentation, the on-court presentation, because as everyone saw, just these beautiful superimposed Larry O'Brien logos that, all right, let's cut the crap. Like Zach and Adrian in the control room probably watching those games, just aghast at how poor the graphics were. At how they easily do better stuff in their sleep for this show.
Oh, I got Zach in my ear. He agrees. Go ahead. Sorry.
The story, in case anyone's been living under a rock and doesn't know what I'm talking about, the NBA responded to a bunch of what I'll call social media pressure, social media hand-wringing, column writing by national writers. The NBA responded to all this about how poor the on-court display was, and how I'd say run-of-the-mill the TV presentation was for what is supposed to be the showcase of the best basketball there is, of the championship round. And so the NBA thought, okay, you know what? Just to quiet everybody, let's digitally impose 2 Larry O'Brien trophies on each end of the court that have glitches, by the way, like some like clear glitches. Yeah, when guys or like refs run by them or whatever.
Who's the bubble all over?
Oh man, it was bad. They then, I think later in the game, just went to like the final script that everyone loves and also misses. I think that was better than the trophies. It still wasn't great. The thing that I was confused at the day before, Adam Silver made comments that essentially hinted at the fact that, he's heard the complaints and that, to me, if you read between the lines, it was like, okay, we're going to get something next year, whether it's the finals logo being on the court, whether it's the trophy maybe, but something about it will be better and different next year. So you didn't have to come up with this like cheap, tacky stopgap because you had already hinted to us it'll be better next year. I just think this didn't serve anybody. If anything, I think it made it worse because now people are clowning the league for that and clowning the TV presentation. I've gone on long about this. Chandler, we'll start with you this time. Do you guys, like, does any of this matter to you? Do you care whether the finals product or TV presentation looks different than the rest, or do you think this is just much ado about nothing?
I don't care, but I think people have the right to care about that, and the aesthetic sort of representation of basketball is a big part of tuning into it. To me, the worst part of the broadcast is Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins screaming and yelling over each other during the Game 2 pregame broadcast. Like, I could completely do without that, but yes, I do see why people are upset about it. And it seems like a very easy fix. Just put that huge Larry O'B at midcourt. It looks nice. Bring back the cool jersey patches with the trophy. This is not difficult to do. Yeah. You're not reinventing the wheel. Just do what you used to do. People love nostalgia.
Yes.
Just do that.
Okay. And a quick point on that. So Silver did mention in that talk I was talking about that like one of the things they found, that one of the reasons they got rid of the big finals Larry O'Brien decal at center court was, for potential slipping hazard, safety, players that talked about it.
Okay.
But again,
have you seen the NBA Cup course?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He could have made that argument 2 years ago before the NBA Cup existed. The NBA Cup courts are the most colorful, decal-filled things you will ever see in professional basketball, even more so than in European basketball when there's like advertising all over the court. So that argument died 2 years ago. Like, you can no longer use that, and I feel like the league knows that too. Silver was trying to find something, to come up with. And again, I'm sure there's merit in it. I'm sure the players maybe were talking about it. Even with the finals courts, you'll remember the first couple weeks of NBA Cup, sorry, not finals courts, in-season tournament courts, the first couple weeks of the NBA Cup last year, the inaugural year they did come with a lot of players slipping, complaining about the courts. They've ended up fixing it. But so again, I'm not saying that wasn't an issue. It's just you can't use that as an excuse now when you've got the NBA Cup courts looking the way they do.
Exactly. That was like one of the two things I was going to say is like those are the most absurd courts you've ever seen in your life. And they stuck. And to your point, they wasn't without issue and they stuck with it and they're still doing it.
They figured it out.
Yeah. And the second thing was, I believe Silver alluded to the fact that he didn't realize this was a thing people wanted until like recently, which I also think is hilarious.
That's like the Mavs saying that we didn't realize how much the city loved Luka Doncic.
Yeah. 1,000,000%. Yeah. It's like, well, how did you notice it just now? Like, people have been talking about this for years. Yeah. And I think with this whole thing, like, to your point about nostalgia, it's like, I can never tell if it's just like, I'm getting older and I'm like, well, back when I was a kid watching these games, there was like the whole finals introduction, like everything was like gold, everything felt special, like there were special things about the court. And now it's kind of like in a time where I would argue the marketing is more important because there's more noise. You've got two teams in there, which I think as a basketball fan are great and exciting teams, but I don't think the general, all the talk is about small market bullshit and nobody cares about these teams, whatever. Like, this is a moment where you need to be relying
right.
on all of the other external things you can to pump this matchup up. And then to then just kind of be like, here's our usual studio show. Here's the regular court. Like, there's nothing special about this. Like, this is, I would think, a crucial time for something like that.
But also the people making these decisions are you and I, the old people. Like,
yeah.
I miss when Bob Cousy could smoke on the court or whatever, you know? Like, I mean, it's just, it seems like a very easy solution, so...
Yeah, also that. Like, very, very easy solution.
I'll say, though, to me, so I agree with all that. I want, whether it's the Larry O'Brien trophy on the court, the final script, I want all that. But to me, it's like it runs deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. And it's all about the little things, like everything that goes into the finals and the presentation of it. Like, I'll go back to, again, yes, we're dating ourselves because I'm about to talk about the 90s. But again, I'm not going back to Bob Cousy. You're like, I know you were joking, but seriously, like...
I was alive for that, man.
Like,
my first GOAT was George Mike.
The Gen Z audience that ripped us for ripping Tristan Jass probably doesn't care about this stuff because, I don't know, it's the TikTok generation, whatever. But if you go back to just the 90s, I'm not talking about 50 years ago.
No.
And you look at the way the NBA on NBC was and the way NBC presented those games, especially like as you got later in the season, but even regular season games, but especially by the time you got to the finals. Even if you're just talking about whether it was Marv Albert or Bob Costas doing the pregame intro, I don't mean the starting line. I mean like a little 30 to 45 second narrative piece about what someone who does not watch the NBA could have tuned in. And 30 seconds before the actual broadcast started, had Marv Albert or Bob Costas giving them a little summary of what they're about to see, why it matters, why this matchup matters, the rivalry, the history behind it, the animosity, the storylines that unfolded throughout the year, and you're caught up like that. That's missing right now. Then even forget a different network. ESPN and ABC have had the finals for a long time. And I remember just up to a few years ago, every year there would be a new finals like montage or intro for the actual TV program, like right before the game started, where it was where they'd show old clips and it would be this little musical montage. And now they've got the commercials, the unforgettable ones, which are cool. But before, something like that used to be part of every broadcast. That's how each finals broadcast would start, and it would change every year, and it would include all these finals. Something like that's no longer a thing. And then then you get to the way the court looks, or the fact that the scoreboard isn't gold anymore. To me, it's a combination of all these things that have slowly eroded, and now it's just ended with all this. But I hope that when they bring, whether it's the logo back on the court, the Larry O'Brien trophy, I hope they also go back to those things too, because that storytelling is all a part of it. And if you want people to be invested and care, you need all of that.
Yes. I can remember even you and I covered the Raptors finals. We were at the home games. It was exciting, legitimately exciting to go home and fire up the game on TV and, watch the introduction to that. Yeah. Also, we can't get the Larry O'Brien trophy. We can't get anything gold, but we can get the YouTube logo and presented by YouTube integrated into the thing,
Look, I have an idea. If many of their best players in the league are European, how about we incorporate some European broadcast ideas? We're both big football fans. Yeah. We've watched a lot of football. I'm really going off script here, but do you remember when Kostas Manolas scored that goal for Roma against Barcelona and Peter Drury was doing the play-by-play and he's like, from the Roman ruins comes a like these sort of things, like you said, with the likes of Marv Albert and Bob Costas, these sort of historical messages and sort of narratives with all this gravitas. The NBA has been so good at doing that before, and they seem to have completely gotten away from it.
Yeah.
It feels strange, honestly. Even just sitting here and talking about it, it feels strange. And like I said, I think the marketing of it is as important as ever.
100%.
And it's strange to not,
100%.
put anything behind it.
I can't believe I just mentioned a Roma goal.
I can.
Earlier, I was going to say the Indiana Pacers are the NBA's Inter Milan, and that was going to be strictly for you.
Yeah, that for any non-soccer fans to watch, the team I support is the bitter rival of Inter Milan. So that made me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
Starting to fight here?
Yeah. Here's hoping that next year, the new media rights deal kicks in, that $76 billion deal. Maybe a bit of a refresher, kind of a clean slate for the league and its media partners, and maybe all of this stuff will come back. Until then, the best narrative storytelling is people just have to watch every episode of Unfiltered on Fridays on theScore's YouTube channel. And if you do that throughout a year, you basically get the story of a season.
That's a professional.
If the NBA needs someone to do their finals montages.
Comment, like, and
subscribe, buddy.
Maybe they can
it.
find some of that money in the budget to, maybe put it together a little video essay or something.
Yeah. All right. Let's end with some trade talk. I was going to say free agency, trade talk, off-season talk. Part of the storytelling and the narrative with the NBA, we know, is player movement and all the drama that comes with it. So with all due respect to the Thunder and Pacers, we're going to get away from the basketball, talk about that narrative now. Last week, I talked with Will Liu, friend of the show and friend of all of ours, about, whether the Raptors should be going after Giannis Antetokounmpo, what that package might look like, whatever. From a league perspective, not just the Raptors, there is also Kevin Durant out there who's much more likely to be traded and could go for much less. Now, we know he's not the player Giannis is at this point of their respective careers. Giannis is 6 years younger. He's gonna, if you just look at the last 4 years, he's going to give you an average of 8+ more games per season. He's under contract for 2 years plus a player option, whereas KD's only under contract for 1. So we understand why Giannis Antetokounmpo is worth a lot more in terms of the asset capital required to get him. But given what asset capital would be required to get each guy, to land each guy, am I crazy for thinking that the team that gets Kevin Durant might end up with better bang for their buck in the immediate, in the short term than Giannis because of, the fact they wouldn't be gutting their team to get him?
Right. That's interesting framing. I think it's wholly dependent on the team that's making it. What, you think that's funny?
a little bit. Go on.
All right. Well, you know what?
No, let's hear that. Let's hear why he's laughing.
No. I thought it was just a cool transition. Scott, go ahead.
Listen. He's a great host. I'm just trying to.
No, he is really, really, really good. Yeah. That's why we're sitting here and he's over there. Continue. Sorry.
Anything else before I get to my point, or are you good? Okay. Okay. So yes, Kevin Durant. I think it's wholly dependent on the team making the move. I think Bill Simmons, actually, I read it right before I got in here, seems to think that it's possible the Spurs already have a deal in place. And I think if you're the Spurs, you're looking to make that move into the next level. I think getting a KD over mortgaging, trading away a potential key piece to get Giannis makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so just to use the Spurs as an example, perfect example. You get Giannis, and you might immediately be a contender, or you could have KD and probably still keep that number 2 pick and have Dylan Harper.
Yes, I meant KD. My bad.
No,
yes.
But but what I'm saying is that's the Spurs are the perfect example, right? Because it's yes, you can have Wemby and Giannis and still have decent stuff around them, but otherwise gut your team, get rid of a lot of the picks you have, or you don't have Giannis, but you have KD, and now you still have Dylan Harper and some of those other pieces. Which would you rather have?
Mm-hmm. And I think, go ahead.
Jeez, sorry, I did it again.
No, go ahead.
It's all good, buddy. Go ahead.
This is the Unfiltered show.
Yeah, we're just doing it.
I don't think, even though we've read reports that the Suns have reportedly lowered their asking price, I don't think their approaches to this are that different. Bucks top exec John Horst, who signed an extension recently, obviously wants to use a Giannis trade. Giannis Antetokounmpo, correcting for a previous error, sorry. But they want to go through, a wholesale rebuild and will require a big package of both draft capital and maybe some young pieces. But for the Suns, their owner, Matt Ishbia, the first task when he took over was acquiring Kevin Durant for 4 first-round picks from the Nets, which in hindsight proved to be too much. This is sort of Ishbia's ego on the line. His hope, is a save face. So while I think they have lowered the asking price, I'm still really curious what Phoenix is looking for there. Is it going to spark a quasi rebuild because Devin Booker will still be there? It's going to be really hard to get out from under that Brad Beal contract. What does it mean? And I should add that Kevin Durant is my favorite player in the NBA, so I'm really biased in this situation, and I would do absolutely anything for my team to acquire him. And I think even though he is 37, he's still got some legs left in him and can be a really high impact player. And we also often overlook Durant's defensive influence. And this year in Phoenix, for a team that played without a lot of heart under Budenholzer and sometimes looked like really lackadaisical, he was often their sort of spark at both ends of the court.
Yeah, listen, KD, obviously isn't what he once was, but even on the defensive end, he still has length. He still knows what he's doing. He can be a small ball 5 sometimes. Like, he can be a rim protector. Like, KD is still a tremendous NBA player when healthy. And again, even bringing it back home to the Raptors, like, you could look at it and be like, some of the reports about them trading down and maybe getting a Cam Johnson, it's like they could probably get KD and Cam Johnson for less than they would have to give up to get Giannis. And again, I'm not sitting here saying Kevin Durant at age 37 is a shell of what Giannis is at this point of his career. Giannis is at worst, the third best player on the planet right now. He still has 2 to 3 years left of his prime. I get all that. It's just when you start talking about the price it's going to take to get him, the team getting him might end up in the situation the Bucks are in right now.
But wow, I did it again, Scott. I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. I won't talk this episode. It's not
no, just in post-production, just cut that. Anyways.
No, I was just going to say, it's a really interesting situation because if you're trading for Giannis, presumably you're like, this is a 3 to 5 year window where we're going to build something and we're going to be competitive, and this is what we're doing. If you trade for KD, he's got 1 year left on his deal.
That's it, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a situation too, but it's more of a short-term move, which is why I was kind of surprised that the Raptors maybe making that trade for a variety of reasons, fit, and then also the timeline. But if you're a team that's looking to make this leap and you're like, let's do it right now, I think KD absolutely raises your ceiling, less cost. It's a good move, but I think it's so situational. Like, even the Spurs, again, depends what they have to give up, but I don't know. It's going to be so fascinating to see where he goes because, like, again, if you're a team like Toronto that's just looking to be good, like, I do think the KD thing is a little strange. I also love KD. I would also love to be able to cover KD on a daily basis. However, I don't know. It's just like, it's fascinating to me.
I will say, with the Ishbia point you brought up is a great one, but I think he's going to have to check that ego if they want to get a deal done because, like, you're not getting what you gave up for him. Like, you're just not. Different points of his career, 1 year left on his contract as opposed to, at that time, multiple years left. It's just not happening. And 2, with a Giannis out there as well, like, teams are saving their bullets for other guys, and they're just not going to spend them for an expiring 37-year-old Kevin Durant. So if the Suns are realistic about what it should take to get him, I think he'll be gone. And, they'll get a decent return, but not a great one. But if they are stubborn, or if Ishbia's ego gets in the way, or he thinks he's going to get anything close to what they gave up for him, then maybe he doesn't move.
Yeah, and I think we're overlooking a huge X factor in this. And based on the Antetokounmpo family vacation in Brazil right now, and for what I've been following, it looks like Thanasis has completely recovered from that torn ACL that ruled him out for
when
the
you watch him
of...
play some beach volleyball,
yeah,
making his determination.
Oh man, that looks great.
I was like, enhance that image. He's healed. So if he's part and parcel of a Giannis move, if Giannis is like, can you sign my brother as a free agent, that would immediately be one of the 3 best moves in Masai Ujiri's Raptors tenure. So
incredible.
I will wrap all of this up to say, even though I'm the one who brought it up, who floated the idea out there, if we're being honest, at the end, it's like, if you can get Giannis in,
yeah, you get Giannis.
You get Giannis, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, even if you want to use the Raptors as an example, who are so far, they weren't even a playing team. I said it last week. I'd give up Scotty Barnes and multiple. I wouldn't give up Scotty Barnes on like 5 firsts, but Scotty Barnes on like 2 or 3 firsts. I would do it because Giannis, especially in this NBA, we've talked ad nauseum about this age of parity, but also in an era like the apron era where teams aren't stacking multiple Hall of Famers. If you have like an MVP caliber player and you surround that guy with enough two-way guys who can shoot, move off the ball, defend, that's probably enough to contend in the modern NBA.
Oh yeah,
and Giannis is that guy.
Totally. And like even today, the apron thing is like Windhorst reported that the Knicks are in on KD. It's going to be really hard for them to make a trade for KD that isn't like a straight up for like Towns or something like that because they're both apron teams.
Yep.
They can't aggregate salary. Like it's going to complicate things more than I think the average NBA fan realizes.
100%. Any parting words from either of you here before I wrap things up?
I'm just sorry for interrupting Scott a few times. And I thought we had good chemistry today. I hope that we can do this together sometime.
It almost happened again. I almost went to speak, and I was like, he's going to go.
He interrupted you while apologizing for interrupting you.
No, honestly, when I found out we were going to do the show together, I was really excited. I was like, I think this is going to be a good thing.
Yeah, man. Beggars can't be losers.
And you were right. It was a great thing. Great chemistry today. Great show. Happy to have both of you on, and we'll definitely have each of you on again, as you both know. So for Scott Campsall, for Michael Chandler, for Zach and Adrian in the control room, my name is Joseph Casciaro. This has been the Unfiltered Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next week.